Mata, there's like an elephant behind you. Is that an angel? What is that?
It's an angel.
Sorry, that's my new hobby now. I look in everybody's. See, Rob, you got the chaos behind you, so I can't look into.
I'm covered up. I'm at work though. I don't know if I.
But yeah, looking into everybody's house. So, how are you guys?
It's a new hobby, definitely.
Well, apparently my nephew, that's the hook that my sister-in-law uses to get him onto his Zoom school. He's fascinated by the fact that he could see into his classmates' houses. So,
okay.
Just like, ooh. Those little 6-year-old.
Yeah, I usually start first on checking that what's on the back. If I have a lot of crap, start moving things. Because for some reason I can't do virtual backgrounds here. Because I guess it's because of the window. Because there's too much light.
Yeah.
So I can't do virtual backgrounds.
Wow.
Hey Kim or Jelly, it says that I can't share my video. That the host
because I just made you host, so you should be able to get it, and then it'll go.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, Jonathan, that's right. I forgot you are on daddy duty.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, are you sharing the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
All right. So you have share screen capabilities.
Fantastic.
And then I will be able to.
Jelly, you're recording already, or whoever is recording. Okay, just making sure.
And I'm able to do the poll, Stephanie, so don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Great.
So as soon as you launch the PowerPoint, we can begin because it's basically free.
All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. Let me just.
All right. Have a great webinar, everyone.
Thank you.
Jelly.
Okie dokie. You guys ready?
Let me just put the presenter order really quickly, Kim.
Sure. While we're getting ready, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. If you haven't had a chance already, I do ask folks to check out the video linked in the first slide. It's a great commercial for the policy seminar. If you don't have time to watch it now, it's only 2 or 3 minutes. But if you need something to convince others in your state, others on your campus, why policy seminar is important, that's a great tool there. And so I believe we're going to be sending people a copy of the PowerPoint afterwards. Yes, cameras, because we're in webinar format, the only people you should see on the screen are the presenters. So before we really get started, I want to just do a quick poll just to kind of see where everybody is at. Okay, everybody except my panelists can vote. I just want to get a sense from folks of whether or not you have been to the policy seminar before, whether you plan to come this year, and whether you've served as a team leader before. That'll really help us know how to tailor our comments. So we'll just give you a few seconds to go ahead and vote. Okay. Okay, about 70 people have voted. There's 108 of you, so give a few more seconds. All right, 7 more seconds. Okay, someone's having difficulty. I'm sorry about that. All right. Okay. So it's pretty even split as far as folks, whether or not they've been before. About half of you have, half of you haven't. In terms of serving as a team leader, this is very helpful to know. So only about 14% have been team leaders before and will again. 20% have, but you're not going to be doing it this year. So we're going to really be counting on you all to train your successors. 13% of you have not been team leaders in the past, but you will this year. And then more than half are like, hey, what's a team leader? So you're in the right place. And then as far as whether you're not going to be participating this year, about half of you are undecided. So again, you are in the right place. So great. Thank you very much. If we can go to the next slide. So just really quickly, you all know what COE is. We are an organization that fights for TRIO programs and low-income first-generation college students more generally. COE was founded in 1981 in Washington, D.C. And one thing that's really important, I think, as it relates to the policy seminar, is that the policy seminar is the oldest activity of COE. Well, I'm sorry, I never introduced myself. My name is Kimberly Jones. I'm the executive vice president at COE. And I have been with the council for 14 years. I previously was in the government relations department. And so policy seminar holds a very special place in my heart. We're joined today by our vice president of public policy, Jonathan Elkin. Jonathan is driving to pick up his kids from daycare, so he may not be able to be as verbose as he'd like to be, but he is here on the call. We also have Stephanie Salvador, our director of government relations, and she's been with the council for 2 years. And we're joined by Rob Pody, who's the president of our Connecticut Educational Opportunity Association, and Mara Luna, who's also the president of our Caribbean Association. And is Jesus here as well? Jesus Maldonado, if he's here as a participant, he should be elevated to a panelist. Jesus is the president of the West Stop chapter. Yeah, so Jesus is here. If we can elevate him, Jelly, that'd be awesome. They're going to be presenting about their experiences with the policy seminar a little bit later in the presentation. So I'm so sorry, everybody. But going back to what COE is, the policy seminar, when COE was founded, when they, filed their articles of incorporation, the very next day, they went to Capitol Hill. There was, a handful of people to advocate for TRIO. So the policy seminar has a very special place in the history of the council and the meaning of the council and what we do. It really symbolizes why we were founded. Next slide, please. So when and where is the policy seminar? Okay. Originally, the policy seminar was going to take place at the Hyatt Regency on Capitol Hill, which is highlighted there. However, the announcement, if it hasn't gone out yet, it will go out imminently, if not today, then possibly tomorrow. We have made the decision, because of the continuing challenges with the coronavirus pandemic, we are going to once again have a virtual event. And so it's going to take place March 22nd through 24th. That is a Monday through Wednesday? Monday through Wednesday in March. And when you register, the same registration prices apply, but you do not have to worry about hotels or anything of that nature. And just like if you participated in the annual conference, we're going to be using the same platform. So you'll receive login instructions to go online to participate in the different sessions. We will work with your team leaders, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, to set up appointments on Capitol Hill. And each congressional office has its own preferred method of doing meetings. Just because of the pandemic, Congress has not stopped taking meetings. They're just doing them online now. And so some offices will prefer to meet over Microsoft Teams, some over WebEx, some over Zoom. And so we'll work with you to set up meetings to make sure that you will have meetings on the day of the 24th. And you just want to make sure that once these meetings are set up, everybody who's coming from your state will know when those meetings are, and we'll have all the software downloaded so everybody can log in at the appropriate time. Next slide. Oh yes, it's virtual. So what do we mean when we say policy seminar? Now, technically, policy seminar, when we say that, we're really referring to, in this case, 3 events. There is the Alumni Forum, which is taking place on Saturday, March 20th. Again, it's also going to be virtual. It is going to be free. And that is for alumni of our TRIO programs, including our TRIO alumni who work in the programs. That is primarily going to be a professional development and networking event from 12 to 4 that Saturday. On Monday, the 22nd, we are going to have the Department of Education Relations Seminar, where you'll be able to hear from officials within the Department of Education, as well as program officers and some professional development workshops offered by our Program and Professional Development Unit. Then on Tuesday and Wednesday, that's where you have the formal policy seminar, where our focus is on advocacy, where we will hear from members of Congress, where we will discuss what are the latest policy developments on Capitol Hill that will affect TRIO, and where we prepare for meetings that will take place on Wednesday, where we will actually advocate for specific positions, where we will say to members of Congress, we want you to support a funding increase for TRIO. We want you to protect TRIO from this threat. Will you sign this letter? Will you join the TRIO caucus? And again, during the Tuesday, we will give you everything you need to be prepared for Wednesday. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the Alumni Leadership Forum, it's going to be free. It's focusing on professional development and networking. Just so you know, a couple of the sessions we have on deck are building wealth for first generation college grads, dealing with mental health challenges during COVID-19. We have a few sessions on entrepreneurship. We're going to have some instant mentoring sessions using the breakout rooms feature of Zoom. And so we're really excited. We are beginning to do our outreach to get some speakers on board who are alumni of the programs. And so far it's coming together to be a very nice program. It's a separate registration from the rest of the policy seminar. And so if you go to, and I'll see if I can put it into the chat, it's a separate link from, it's a separate registration from everything else because it's free. And so I'll make sure I put that in the chat. But yeah, we do strongly encourage you to please send it to your program alumni. Even some of your current students, if you're an SSS program, some of the stuff might be interesting to some of your college kids. And so please consider inviting them also. I think at this point, I will turn it over. Jonathan, I'm not sure if you're able to talk. If so, I can hand it over to you. Okay.
I'm in the parking lot of my kids' daycare.
Okay.
So I do pick up on Thursdays. So what happens on policy seminar? There are two major portions of this part of the week. It'll be Monday, the 22nd. That'll be the Department of Ed. You'll meet with program officers and hear specific information directly from the horse's mouth about your specific TRIO programs, latest updates and information, as well as things that apply to all TRIO programs. And you'll hear from the Department of Education, whether it be career staff or potentially by that time the new political appointees that President Biden, has appointed a Secretary of Ed. That person, once confirmed, Secretary Cardona would appoint the high-level political staff, and hopefully some may be able to join as well. So it'll be great to hear from the Biden administration about their plans for the TRIO programs and how they plan to administer the programs. Then Tuesday is the main portion of policy seminar. We will hear from members of Congress who fund TRIO and who advocate for TRIO within Congress. You'll hear from their staff, hear from policy experts, and you'll prepare to actually meet with your members of Congress and their staff to directly advocate for TRIO programs. That is the most crucial part of this because without you and without your continued advocacy with Congress, TRIO would not exist. Next slide. So at the policy seminar portion on Wednesday, the 24th, that's when you will have virtual this year meetings with Capitol Hill. We've done this before. Last year, we did completely virtual policy seminar. Here's a screenshot, some great meetings with Congresswoman Susie Lee of Nevada. So hats off to Westop and our Nevada chapter. I'm not sure if you're there, but this is a great meeting you had, and you can see right there. In fact, at this very online meeting, she decided to join the Congressional TRIO Caucus as a result of this virtual meeting. So thank you for your continued advocacy. And then we'll have this year a virtual closing rally to share our progress, share how the meetings went, and celebrate each other and our work this year. Next slide. So during the meetings, you'll talk directly with members of Congress or their education staff. The guy on the bottom is Brian Moulton. He is the Senior Ed Policy Advisor for Senator Baldwin of Wisconsin. And so this is a great meeting that happened last year in a policy seminar. So you'll request support for TRIO funding and ask that the senators and representatives take specific action to support TRIO. And you'll represent your students. Share what you are doing, what they are doing, their successes, and the challenges that you face. Next slide. And so why is this important? Why bother doing all this? You're so busy. I know you have programs to keep going and you have to serve your students. They're facing tremendous need. Why bother talking to Congress and the Department of Ed? Well, TRIO is a federal program. The U.S. Department of Education is funded, it's authorized by the U.S. Congress, and that is in the Federal Higher Education Act. And Congress, may update that law that affects all the rules governing TRIO. And so we have to be in there and talking to Congress. And most importantly, this happens every single year. TRIO is completely funded by the United States Congress. There's no separate private philanthropy that is doing this. It's not your university funding. It's not state and local money. It is Congress that pays your rent. So we got to keep in touch with them. And so the program, once funded, is administered by the Department of Ed. Okay, so it's crucial to continue advocating each year. Next slide, please.
All right, and I think that is my cue. So a lot of people ask us, how will I know what to say? How will I know what to do? And we take care of all of that for you the day before you're actually supposed to go on the Hill or have your virtual meetings. The Tuesday before, you can ask questions of COE leadership and staff. We have usually a panelist of congressional staffers that are able to offer helpful hints and tips, and sometimes stay afterwards and answer questions as well. So we make sure that you receive the talking points, the data, and the general guidance that you're going to need when you go to Capitol Hill. We do all of that for you. And that's Jonathan Elkin right there in the little red circle. You can see that he was once on our policy seminar panelists years ago. So thank you, Jonathan. Now you're on the other side.
That's right.
Also, we are going to be hosting special breakouts. So we'll break you out into teams based on your state or your program so that you can strategize, what you're going to say. You can assign roles to different members of your team. For example, one person can tell their TRIO story. They have a compelling story. The other person will make the appropriations ask. Another person can ask the member to join the TRIO caucus. Really, the special breakout sessions to strategize allow you time to meet with your group and to delegate different roles. So now we're going to go into a quick preview of the Policy Seminar 2021 issues that we're going to be discussing. And the first thing that we are going to be asking for, of course, as Jonathan mentioned, is funding for TRIO programs. Congress pays our rent, so we have to make sure to keep in touch with them, ask them for raises, etc. So as you can see, this is a chart that shows TRIO funding from fiscal year 2013 to fiscal year 2021. I apologize at the top, that date is not updated, but the numbers are correct. So in 2021, the most recent year, we received a $7 million increase, and TRIO is now standing at $1.097 billion in annual appropriations funding. So congratulations to all of you who have worked with us over the years to make this success possible. And we're going to keep fighting in the Biden administration to ensure that TRIO is top of mind and that we continue to receive these increases so that we can continue to do our critical work.
Can I add one thing, Stephanie?
Please, go for it.
And you're actually going to get more into this in the next slide, but having a strong showing at Policy Seminar is so important this year because it's the first year of the Biden administration. And for those of you who were in TRIO during the Obama administration, you might recall that when Obama was the president and the Congress was controlled by Democrats, they followed his lead. And so whenever the Obama administration issued their budget request to Congress, that's how the funding cycle starts. The administration issues their proposal, and then Congress takes their cues from that. Every year, the Obama administration said to level fund TRIO because they wanted to put new money into different priorities. So that signaled to the congressional Democrats, oh, well, if they don't want to put new money in TRIO, we don't have to worry about putting new money in TRIO. So during the Obama presidency, if you look at the lines there, it was very difficult for us to get a lot of money. And it wasn't until Congress, the House at least, flipped that you started to see some big jumps. So, around 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, we started to really start to creep up. Because we were very fortunate that on the Republican side, a gentleman named Tom Cole from Oklahoma, who'd been a longtime fan of TRIO, became the chairman of the Appropriations Subcommittee, and we were one of his top priorities. So even though the Obama administration said, oh, we want to level fund TRIO, being a Republican member, Mr. Cole didn't have to pay attention to that. But now we have the new administration, and so we're kind of back in the situation we were before with President Obama. So we have to have a strong showing, and we at COE are working behind the scenes to influence the Biden administration in their first budget, which probably will not come out until the full budget request won't probably come out till April. So we've got some time here. So that's why it's so important to have strong numbers in the policy seminar in March, because it will be very, very difficult for us to exceed what the Biden administration proposes to give us. It will be very difficult. If the Biden administration says we should level fund TRIO, the congressional Democrats will likely say, oh, we'll level fund TRIO. And guess what? The Democrats control the House and the Democrats control the Senate. So it's very important. And it doesn't mean they don't care about us and don't love us, but it just means that there are other priorities that the administration might have. And every administration that's new, they have new things they want to do, new programs, new projects, new interests. So we have to have a strong showing, particularly this year. And I think Stephanie, in this next slide, you start to talk about why the next fiscal year is so important for us.
Yes, would you like me to take that?
Please.
So this year is going to be a very important year, not only because, as Kim mentioned, we have a new administration in place and we're trying to make the case for increased TRIO fundings, but also we have a new party in control in Congress. In the Senate, the Senate flipped from Republicans to Democrats after the recent Georgia runoff elections. Therefore, we're going to have new leadership in all of the committees. So now the new chairs are going to be all Democrats in the Senate. So the House and Senate budget committees are going to be determining the new budget cap amounts. It's very important that Senator Sanders hears from us, especially those of you coming from Vermont, about the importance of increasing the budget caps for education programs like TRIO. So before, it was kind of difficult for us to get increases because we were under these very tight austerity measures, these budget caps that only allowed education funding to go so far. And now the Senate Budget Committee is going to be renegotiating these caps. So our goal is really to get in there early and to make the case for higher caps so that we can get ultimately higher increases.
Also, next year, 4 TRIO programs are competing. The money FY22 is going to determine how large the grant sizes will be and how many grants will be funded for Upward Bound Math Science, Veterans Upward Bound, and McNair. So let's go back 2 years ago when we had student support services. We had a $30 million funding increase. That meant, I think we had a 9% overall swelling in the number of programs. That's because we had extra $30 million. So if we want to see growth in the next round of competitions for Upward Bound Math Science, Veterans Upward Bound, and McNair, we got to go big. It's going to be I will tell you right now, it's going to be very tight for Talent Search and EOC because we only got $7 million additional dollars. So it's going to be tight. Thankfully, those are a little bit smaller grant competitions, but Upward Bound is huge. So that is incumbent upon us to make sure that we have big numbers because when we go in March, we're going to be fighting for FY fiscal year 2022.
Correct. Thank you, Kim. So the funding that we receive in fiscal year 2022 will directly impact the size of the grants available for these 4 programs. So just kind of keep that in mind. Thank you, Kim. Okay, so also another thing that is on our radar is the Higher Education Act. Because we have been successful in getting increased funds, several different interest groups are targeting TRIO in the Higher Education Act reauthorization. Everybody wants a slice of our pie. Everybody sees that we have over $1 billion in funding and they want to get it in on that action. But you know, unfortunately for us, that means that we have more work in playing defense and making sure that we're protecting our programs against you know, other attempts at changing the groups that we serve. Also, remember, you know, I said that we're going to have new leadership in the Senate. So that also means that they're going to come with their new priorities. It's unclear if HEA reauthorization is going to be high priority given the cascading crises that we're facing in this nation. But it is very possible that HEA reauthorization could come up. So we always have to be prepared just in case. The House and Senate have considered bills that would add requirements to TRIO by expanding the scope of services or carving out funding to pit different student populations against each other. So this is what we've seen in the past, and we're remaining vigilant now in the president to ensure that we can continue to protect TRIO in the years to come and in future reauthorizations. All right, really quickly, I'd like to talk about preparing for policy seminars, since you will be receiving an email from me if you're a state leader within a day or two about preparing for policy seminar and selecting your team leaders. So your state leaders will select team captains to set up appointments on Capitol Hill. I will send out an email with more information about this, but if you are interested in helping out, please contact your chapter president to volunteer. Also, to start preparing, now is a good time to gather data about your students' success stories. This can include state fact books, APR statistics, creating your own program fact sheets. We've created templates for you all. There's a link right there to sample TRIO one-pagers that you literally can just plug in with your own information and it's written for you. Also, another good idea, since this is going to be a virtual policy seminar, is to start thinking about stories of current students or alumni, you know, that share their testimony about the impact of TRIO. Recording videos is a great idea, since, you know, they're not going to be able to be there in person, but if you can have a video clip that you can share during your congressional meeting, that, you know, is something that can definitely make an impact. Also, keep up with COE updates and alerts. I will be sending out more alerts, as well as our comms department, the closer we get to policy seminar. So please, please stay up to date with all of the alerts that you receive from us.
Hey, Stephanie, can
Yeah.
I just underscore a few points you made? And just to answer one of the questions in the chat, we will send out a copy of the recording and the PowerPoint. Let me go back to the top, because I know at the beginning of the webinar, a lot of people were concerned about the idea of team leaders and team captains. So if you are a chapter president, congratulations. By default, you are the team leader or a team leader for your state. Like Stephanie mentioned, you will be getting something from the government relations team that explains what's involved in that. Most, unless you are a very small state, like maybe Maine, Rhode Island, most states need 2 or 3 captains. And so you won't be by yourself. You will recruit others. So find others who've been to policy seminar before, who have done this, but the responsibility essentially is to schedule the appointments on Capitol Hill. And we give you all the contact information. We give you a sample message to send to the congressional staffers. So we try to really make it as easy as possible for you. But by default, if you're the chapter leader, that is one of your responsibilities. And if you're having trouble, please, you know, reach out to us and we'll see if we can help you, you know, make that happen. But it's really, it's not very difficult. We do this every year. People in your state or region have done this every year. It's not that scary, I promise. Again, we provide a link for you to look at sample one-pagers. A report came out from the General Accounting Office of the government earlier this week. And it wasn't that bad, but part of what the premise behind the report, I think the title of it was, the department needs to do more to verify accuracy in college access programs, something to that effect. And people on Capitol Hill and elsewhere are concerned about whether TRIO programs work. So this is your opportunity to showcase that you work. And we're not asking anybody to reinvent the wheel. You already have the information. You put it in your APRs. And so the fact sheets, the sample fact sheets we created are based on the information you're already giving to the department. Oh, so wait, here's the title. GAO report. Education department should ensure data on TRIO's effectiveness is accurate. So again, people are trying to peek under the hood and make allegations. So we just want to make sure we have our data together when you go to meet with your members of Congress. And again, because these meetings are virtual, we don't want students to miss class, make no mistake, but it's an opportunity that you generally wouldn't have to include students, depending on when your meeting is scheduled. So that's something to think about as well. Can you go to the next slide, Stephanie?
Yes.
So this slide, and this is on our, actually, it's probably not on the website, actually. It's in the brochure, but it's not on the website. These are the costs for registration based on whether you're an institutional member, a non-institutional member. We're still ahead of the early bird deadline. So depending on when you register, these are the rates for registration. One important note, registering for the Alumni Forum does not register you for anything else because that is free. So you have to be sure that you register separately. That's why it's a separate whole shebang. Also, be mindful of the retiree rates and the TRIO alumni rates. So let's say you're a TRIO alum, but if you work for a TRIO program, you don't get the alumni rate, if that makes sense. It's that the alumni rate's really for someone who's not working for a TRIO program, who decides they just want to come to the policy seminar, if that makes sense, because it's discounted deeply for them, because if they don't work for a TRIO program, what incentive do they have to come to the policy seminar, if that makes sense? So again, this is in the brochure, but this is just for your information here. Oh, next slide, sorry. Word about discounts. This really well, last year we were virtual too. I don't know how much this will apply this year, but certainly if people want to take advantage of it. If you register with a newcomer, so if someone who's not come to the policy seminar before registers this year, if you register together, you get half off that registration. The same applies if you bring an institutional government relations official. The only thing is that you can't do it online. You have to mail in or fax in the registration. You can contact our business and finance unit at COE for more information, and their email is finance@coenet.org. So those have to be sent in hard copy. Okay, and I got a couple questions in the chat about this. So how to pay for it all. So here's the main thing you need to know. Next slide. In terms of what you can use your grant monies to pay for, you can use grant monies to pay for things with the primary purpose is the dissemination of technical information that is necessary and reasonable for the successful performance under the federal grant award. You cannot use grant money to pay for anything that attempts to influence legislation. So what does that mean? Next slide. You can use grant money to pay for the Department of Ed Relations seminar. Yes. You cannot use a grant money, next slide, to pay for the TRIO Alumni Forum, but it's free this year, so that's not an issue, or the policy seminar. So those are non-grant funded. Now, the thing is, when you do apply, or excuse me, register, if you're registering for both, we provide you with a receipt that breaks down the cost. So even though it might be one, I don't remember, let's say it's $700, when you get the receipt, it will say, okay, of the $700, this amount of it is for the Department of Ed, and this amount of it is for the policy seminar. So you'll know how to allocate it appropriately. And then in terms of how do you separate out your costs, you would want to use vacation days for your participation in the policy seminar. Whereas Department of Ed, that's professional development, that is work time. And in terms of defraying the cost, and already Barbara put in the chat one way Barbara Thompson, the one way AEEE is helping to defray costs. So clearly going to your host institution to request perhaps part of their indirect could be used for this, but it must truly be indirect. You can get assistance from your regional association. You can get assistance from your state association. And again, our guest speakers may want to speak a little bit about how they've dealt with cost issues in the past. And so here are just a couple of quotes. I'm not going to read them to you from past participants about policy while I take a look at the questions in the chat. Can you scan and email the registration form? Yes, they're on the brochure. There is a fax number. So, or you can scan it in via email and send it that way as well. Oh, so if you bring a newcomer and get half off, can you include what the registrations would be in the next? Well, it's half. It's just half off. It's just half of that person's registration. So whatever, it'd be different based on whether you're a member or a non-member. So.
Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
These are also just some further quotes from past participants. And now we're going to turn it over to our guest panelists, Ms. Mara Luna, Mr. Jesus Maldonado, and Mr. Robert Pope, to talk a little bit more about their experiences in past policy seminars. And I'm going to turn it over to them without any further ado. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon for those on the East Coast, and good morning still, I think, for the West Coast. As everyone mentioned, my name is Mara Luna, and I am the past president of the Caribbean Association of Educational Opportunity Programs, also known as CAOP. And you might wonder why Puerto Rico, not being a state or not having an actual representative or senator, wants to go to policy seminar. Well, there are several reasons why. First of all, we only have a resident commissioner. Ms. Jennifer Gonzalez is our actual resident commissioner. And although she doesn't have a voice, I mean, a vote, she does have a voice. And she has networking, you know, she has done a lot of networking, and she knows those power players. So it's just a matter of letting her know what TRIO is, what TRIO needs, and she gets the ball rolling. She starts talking to these people and she makes all of these connections. She also has signed our TRIO letter. And every time there's something that has to do with education and directly related to TRIO, she knows that she has to start talking to people. And we make sure that she knows what points to bring in and what she needs to do. In the past 3 or 4 years, we've talked to her, and all of her staff has been very welcoming. And as Kimberly mentioned on the presentation, you know, we bring our fact books and we tell her, you know, this is how much money we have, how many students we impact, and this is what works. So we just need that Senate funding and Congress funding in order to get things done. And the other thing that the other reason why we want to do and go to Washington is, remember that politics are a little bit different here in Puerto Rico. So we learn a little bit about how politics are run in the States. We don't have those congressional colleges and everything. You know, we do things by direct voting. So for us, it's also a learning experience. Remember that you learn something new every day. So we expose our members to this learning experiences. And what we're better to do it that they're having it live there. I mean, especially when we had our in-person policy. It's a wonderful experience for them to actually see the Capitol and get to know everybody. But now, since we don't have that, I mean, we also can do our networking. And I always, when we are in any webinar or any session, I start looking through the participants and starting to identify names that I've seen before. And usually I just say hi to everybody. And it's just a matter of networking and getting those relations, because who knows, in the future, you might not be here in Puerto Rico and you might be one of the states, so you already have this persons. And also we can do liaisons, you know, we can do some partnerships, and we're working on some partnerships right now with other colleagues from all across the United States. Another thing that we do is that those two, members who actually go to policy, they become leaders. I mean, our last in-person policy, the 4 or 5 new members that we brought into our to Washington, they actually became board members. So directly or indirectly, we actually started creating leaders. They saw the relevance of going to policy. They understood more about what our role was. And as I said, they all became board members the following year. So that was a great plus for us, because we have new people, new blood with new ideas to reinforce our regional work, you know. And basically how we help, I mean, as a region, we do take aside money from our budget to pay. We have like scholarships, professional scholarships. So every year we have 3 or 5, depending on how our budget is, people that go to policy paid by the region. So we give them a stipend of about $1,200, and they can use that to pay for policy in case of their program. You know, sometimes they program pay for something, but this will help with, you know, with airfare and hotel and meals and all that. So we take some money out of our regional budget to help policy members who want to do that. And I just saw in the chat what AEEE is doing. So in the meantime, I already chat with our current president. I say, hey, we can copy this. So we're even considering doing that for a whole board to be part of policy this year. So don't miss out the opportunity. It's a great learning experience. This is going to be my 5th policy seminar, and I'm looking forward to it. And I hope to see you there as well.
Thank you so much, Mara Luna, for sharing your experience with Policy Seminar. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jesus Maldonado to talk a little bit about his experience in the West Stop region.
Great. Thank you. As I said, my name is Jesus Maldonado. I'm the president-elect for West Stop, and I served as that JED chair for the association for 2 years prior to my current role. Here in West Stop, and especially in California, we have 55 congressional members and members of Senate. So we have a big push to get out and visit as many of our members of Congress as possible. We also have the Speaker of the House, the GOP minority leader from California, and now the Vice President of the United States, also from California. So we do have a lot of different parties and different groups that you're working with. So it's important that yes, Madam Vice President, that we have the opportunity to share our experiences with as many possible of the 55 within California, and then the other about approximately 20 in Nevada, Pacific Islands, and Arizona, that we make sure that we are communicating with them. We also have 2 new senators within our district, Senator Padilla in California, and the Arizona senator, I can't remember his name right now. So it is very important that we are there and that we get as many of our members there. And it's important for them to go to policy so that they learn about the legislative process, because a lot of times, as I mentioned earlier, TRIO or the TRIO funding pays for what we do. And especially this time of this pandemic, we were able to keep our work going within our universities because we have the TRIO funding to keep us going. A lot of our colleagues don't have that luxury at this time. And like for us, we were able to fully run our programs. We are able to do this work, and it's because we have TRIO funding. So as we're going back with the new Congress, my first year as the JED chair was right after the Trump administration came in, and we had another, in 2018, had a huge growth of Democrats coming in and taking over the House. So again, we had to go in and re-educate our members. And it's important that we have our stories and that we're telling them. If we can be there in person, it's great because we're able to talk to their staff, show them what we're doing. But virtually, we also have to build up our ground game ahead of time. So one of the things that we do at West Stop and also within my institution at Occidental College is that we create videos to promote the work that we're doing before we get to the policy seminar meetings. I'm going to link one video that we created, and this one was for Senator Harris, or now Vice President Harris, before we met with her staff. And then we had done a second video. There was a call out last year from COE to show video to talk about how the pandemic had affected our students. So our staff worked together. If I can find it, if a second, I had it up. I'll pull it up right now. That we were constantly doing that, and we asked our members to do that also, because we wanted to continue that conversation, letting them know how we're still providing services during the pandemic and how the resources that we are getting are still being used. It's very important that you rally your members. Being the first virtual event last year was tough at first to get everybody going, but the sooner you start scheduling appointments, now that we know the dates of the virtual Hill visits, the better, because they do take time to respond. So make sure you do your first introductory email, wait 2 weeks, follow up. It will help you get those appointments scheduled. And I will tell you that there are times, even when we've been on the Hill, or when we did it virtually last year, that it was the night before when we get an email being like, oh, by the way, great, you want to meet with us? This is the time we have available. So you have to be flexible in that sense, and move things around. And being virtual, it'll be easier, because it'll give you the chance to have that flexibility. And if not, you need to follow up with them. Encourage other programs to attend. Remind them that even though that we're all funded through TRIO. So as an upper bound director, I know it's important that I go this year, because our funding is at stake. If there is not a significant increase in funding, there'll be less programs, tighter competition. It makes things harder for all of us. We all want to have our programs funded, but we all need to put in the work to make sure those programs are funded, which is the most important part, because if we don't have that funding, there's going to be less programs, less students served. We have an administration who might have new priorities. So we need to remind them of the priorities that this program brings into the work that we're doing. Here's a link to my other video. But yeah, that's the biggest part, is just building up that excitement. If normally, if you were going to DC and some people couldn't go, then you would encourage them to reach out to field offices. I encourage your teams to reach out to the offices in DC and the field offices in your congressional districts, so you can have conversations with both and build up that relationship. We've had the pleasure of having Congressman Jimmy Gomez, who's been in office for 4 years now, actually visited us twice already. Once just to meet with the students, and once to attend our 55th anniversary reunion. We recently put up a video kind of recapping the year, and he liked it, which the staff was really excited about, to have that interaction with him. But it keeps the work that we're doing fresh in their minds, so that when we go to them and talk to them about all that we're doing with the funding, they know that the importance of why you need to support TRIO funding. So new Congress, new president, all houses under the Democrats, we really need to go out there and remind them why TRIO works, why TRIO should be funded, and why we need to continue to increase that funding.
Thank you so much, Jesus, and thank you so much for sharing that tip about the videos. As I mentioned earlier, you're a great example of somebody who's already doing that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we are going to turn it over to Mr. Robert Pope. Take it away, Robert.
Thank you, Stephanie. And, on behalf of the Collegiate Access Program here at WestCon, and being the president of CAOP, not the Caribbean, but the Connecticut Association for Education Opportunity Programs. The first two things that I thought of while I'm listening to everyone else speak is that, whether you come from a large state like California, or a territory that's not quite a state yet, but we look at it as a state, or Connecticut being a very small state, our state's playing a major role here with the new administration. One of our House members, Rosa DeLauro, is the chairperson for the HELP committee, which appropriates educational funds. So it's big that we communicate with her. And, you know, I'm happy to see Miguel Cardona on the PowerPoint here, because he was our Commissioner of Education in Connecticut. So this year becomes even more important for Connecticut to step up for all our states, and to support all the TRIO programs, you know, that we service. The three things that I had jotted down here about what I've gotten out of the past, with policy seminars. Number one, networking with individuals who are like-minded. You know, a lot of us work at institutions where our institutions don't quite know what TRIO means, or how TRIO works. And it's our job, number one, to convey that message. But being around like-minded people that have the same vision for our students as we do, it inspires you to go back and to continue to do the good work that we all do. And so that's one of the main pieces that I get out of going to TRIO. The other piece with the networking piece, I've had many of my TRIO students maybe transfer in the middle of their senior year or in the middle of their junior year. And we've been able to have resources in different areas, whether it's the state you're in or in different states, that we can point them to. I know I had a student that transferred from Connecticut to Boston University, where they were able to meet with a TRIO representative there, which helped out tremendously with him getting in. The second thing I wrote down was education. Education for us as TRIO staff, but educating the policymakers that we're going to be meeting with, whether it's an aide or an educational liaison, or whether it's actually the senator or congressman or woman themselves, you know, showing them, you know, what we're all about. I know Jesus brought a video. We always bring a fact sheet. One year, Senator Murphy had come to our program, and, you know, we printed out a big picture and we sent to him with all the kids. And so, you know, hopefully that stayed in his office and he thought about us quite often. And so it's the education that I've received through this process, not only through COE, but with the Department of Education. We get to learn a lot about the policy changes that could change. I know last year we were involved with the stimulus, the COVID-19 stimulus package that came out, and how that would affect our students. Would we be able to help feed them? Would we be able to give them laptops and internet access and things like that to help, you know, provide for their education? All those questions are answered, you know, at the policy seminar with the Department of Ed. You know, other things that help is, again, with vocabulary. You know, before I got involved with TRIO, in my civics class, I might have heard about appropriations and reauthorization and things like that. But we actually are learning what those things are, you know, through COEs, you know, all the stuff COE gives you. I mean, they make it very easy for you to understand. And again, the networking of the groups, the message doesn't change from state to state, which is good. So if you find that you might have a state where you don't have as much support, well, you know, you have a state right next to you that might have more people that you can say, hey, how are you guys asking for this? And, you know, creating those relationships. The third thing that I put, other than dressing up, you know, nice, I did put a suit and tie on today. This is how I do like to go to Capitol Hill. I like to always wear my TRIO button. I don't think there's been a congressman or senator's desk that I haven't left a TRIO button on. When we go there, I make sure I put it on their desk so that they see it. But we also hear a lot of the inspirational stories from past TRIO participants that are now CEOs and, you know, owners of their own businesses. And it gives you some stories to go back to, you know, when you go see your students, and to inspire them to kind of follow in those footsteps. You know, the key thing that I've really gotten out of the last few years that we've gone, is with the relations with the U.S. Department of Education. There's lots of things, like I said, that your institution can't give you answers to. The two people that you want to go to is COE and the U.S. Department of Education, particularly COE first. They always typically have the right answer first. So, you know, utilizing that is very important. And, you know, I encourage everyone to go. It's sort of, you know, after what we've gone through over this past year, it's your civic duty to get involved. And The only way to help things happen and change and get more money for your students is to go to policy seminar, and get to meet your representatives. And yes, like many of these the other speakers said, share the stories of your student successes. Our state organization commits to paying for 2 alumni to go so that they can tell their story. Also, they also send a state liaison to help with that process. Other ways to help pay for it is if you have other grant funds, you can apply within your institution for workshop funds that are able to be applied towards some of that. So, there are ways to afford, and every once in a while, I've always spent some of my own money. I mean, it is a commitment, but we're all in this, for the students that we service, and without us, then we don't keep getting the funding. So I feel like it's important. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. And that's a great note to end this portion on. If you go to the next slide, Stephanie, you already kind of saw a preview. It's the Q&A. And so we've been tackling a couple of the questions in the chat about, and mostly it's about, the payment. And I definitely get, it sounds crazy, right? You're in your office, you're on a virtual conference, and you're on a vacation day. Think about it the way you do your grants, right? You cannot use work time to write your grants, but I'm certain that many of you are writing your grants in your office. It's the same sort of thing. Like, you can't charge to your grant that time. And so, to Rob's point, if we don't do the advocacy, I often run across, oh, I'm sorry, I turned off my camera. I often run across folks in TRIO who are completely dedicated to their students. And, they're like, you know what, don't bother me, politics is ugly, and I just want to work with the students. But if we don't do this piece, the advocacy, we may not be there to serve our students. In the 14 or 15 years that I've been doing this work, I've seen programs disappear because they were not organized and because they didn't have a base to fight to keep the programs alive. And so that's really part of what distinguishes TRIOs, our ability to organize, to be boots on the ground, and to keep our arms around the program. Because if COE did not COE, the organization, but COE, the collective, the organized TRIO community did not exist, then TRIO would have been gone. And so that's why this is our boot camp when we go to the Hill. And even though, again, it's virtual in nature, it's still so critical because a lot of folks have really retreated in this time. So it's crucial that we remain on task. There was a question. In the message you'll be getting from Stephanie later this week, they will have meetings for the team leaders for training, so to speak. Also, during the policy seminar schedule that Tuesday, we are going to have actually four, I think, if I remember correctly, 4 different blocks of time where we're going to have state calls, where we are going to go through the specific talk, like all day long, we're going to have sessions about what we're supposed to be talking about, but we are also going to have specific time set aside for each state to go over the talking points and how they relate to your congressional delegation. So you will have time to drill down and say, okay, in New Hampshire, this is what y'all need to talk about with Senator Shaheen, and so on and so forth. We have just a few minutes left. Are there other questions if people want to pop them in the chat or the Q&A box, or if there's something I might have missed that anybody else, the other panelists want to speak to? Oh, so another question. Do we have an updated list of TRIO programs? We are working on that. We've gotten it from the Department of Ed, and we are working on creating the new TRIO slates.
Kim, if I could, one thing is if you do plan on going, do your research before you go. I mean, when I first started, I come from a teaching background, and I was a state liaison for Connecticut. I brought folders with printouts of how every congressman or woman had voted and where their district was. Some people don't know what district you're in, whether you're in District 1, 2, 3, or 4. I think it's important to do some of that work. Because a lot of times when you go in and you speak to, again, Connecticut's small, so, you're speaking to a specific region that representative represents, you want someone from that school in that area to speak, right? So that they connect better with them. But doing your research before.
And we try to, we provide you information. We have it'll be digital, of course, this year, but we provide you with a policy manual that has background information on your members, like how they voted on certain things, which members of Congress were teachers, let's say. But if you want some of the other background information Rob's talking about, reach out to us. I mean, that's our job, is to help you with that.
Yeah, we were talking about Miguel. Miguel used to be a 4th grade teacher. So do your research. So when you talk, he was an educator, which is great for a Secretary of Education finally.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I just plopped into the chat. Someone asked for a copy of the link to the one-pagers. Stephanie, do you think you could go to show the video? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we had things. Okay. I didn't realize we had this. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Do you want me to click on any of them?
Well, I don't know if we have time for any of them, but when people, we do have a couple of videos from our friends at the Congressional Management Foundation, which will be very helpful actually for people who've never been to policy seminar before. The Congressional Management Foundation does research with members of Congress and their aides. And because it's anonymous, they actually get a lot of very juicy tidbits. So things about what members of Congress really think about the things, the advocacy materials you give them, what's most effective. And so again, we'll be giving you all these materials. What's left in the slides? I'm sorry.
Just one more. Just the
contact information.
And we're at time.
I was going to ask if you would be able to go to the link of the video, the promo video.
All the way at the front?
Yeah, if we could show that.
Sure.
On YouTube.
This one?
Yeah, you might have to do a new screen share.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it up and then I'll do a new screen share. All right, there we go.
Well, I think that taking care of your students on a campus means fighting for them. If you're going to fight locally in their high school and the college, you have to fight for them nationally too. You have to make sure that you're going to be there to serve them. And if you're not there to serve them, who is going to take care of your students?
I'm Kimberly Jones. I'm the Vice President for Public Policy at the Council for Opportunity in Education. We're here in Washington, D.C. for the annual policy seminar. It is the hallmark of what we do, and it's grown to be one of the largest convenings of education professionals going on Capitol Hill to fight for equity and advocacy.
The TRIO programs are programs designed to provide upward mobility for individuals and families. Therefore, if you're working in a TRIO program, it's not enough just to provide services. You also have to be an advocate.
The major thing to think about and to understand is that the demands on the government are never ending and ever greater. If the education community doesn't explain why it's important, doesn't take the time to get out and advocate on its own behalf, then that money is going to go elsewhere. The advocacy role that COE and TRIO plays is incredibly important because if they don't do it, no one else is going to.
This is my 20th time coming to the policy seminar. We've been doing this now for over 30 years. It is absolutely imperative that if you want to be funded, this is the time your congressman or congressperson or senator gets to hear directly from you that TRIO actually works.
TRIO works.
One of the greatest accomplishments that I have come into, I have a PhD, and it was because of the TRIO programs, and that's why I'm here.
I actually dropped out of community college twice as I was able to come back on my third attempt after many struggles, TRIO was an opportunity for me to be connected.
Within my first semester, I was lost. I couldn't ask my mom for anything because she's never been to a university. I couldn't ask my dad because he went straight to the military. They started feeding into me and giving me some insight like, LaDonna, do you know that you can go to grad school? LaDonna, do you know you can go and be a lawyer? Have you thought about that?
Our TRIO alums know exactly where they would be if they didn't have a college education. And they can name the name of the person who encouraged them when they were discouraged.
At the state level, so often we think that, well, we don't really have any voice, we don't have any opportunity, we don't have any control. Actually, you really do. When you come to policy, you have a chance to learn that. Our first day and a half, we talk about the climate in Congress, we talk about the approach, we talk about the need for our students to be represented by us as professionals.
This is my 8th time to the policy seminar. However, it's my first time bringing students. And to me, that has been an amazing experience. 5 of them have never traveled on a plane before. When you're a first generation student, you're kind of first generation for life because you're experiencing a lot of different things that you've never done before.
It was amazing. Besides the monuments are just like, they're in front of you, you know, like they're not pictures. So it was really nice experiencing them like firsthand, like with each other.
The excitement of just seeing their faces and light up, and I'm gonna get emotional. It's been great.
I think if you come to policy, you finally understand the big picture. When you hear COE staff or COE president talk about the importance of being an advocate, when you actually attend policy seminar, do you understand what government for the people, by the people is?
Inviting the member of Congress to visit with the students and their families.
It's all personal in TRIO.
And this is the reason we need folks to come from every state to say that TRIO works.
TRIO works.
TRIO works. TRIO always works. And you're joining a movement. We need to expand. We need to do more.
Yay. Yay. Caveat, it's going to be 40 years.
Yeah, this is our 40th anniversary, everybody. So this video is 5 years old. But thank you everybody for hanging with us. I know we're 5 minutes past time. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Stephanie, Jonathan, and we will get you the answers you need. But we do hope to see you virtually at the policy seminar. Thanks again to Jesus, Robert, and Mara for participating, and Jelly for being our wonderful tech wizard on the back. And thanks you all so much. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.